Hey, I was just taking a second look at this novella. It's small, it's not very thick. It's a memoir, and it was fun to write. And several people are reading it today. And sometimes I want to go back and look and see what other people are reading and kind of judge for myself what I think might be the qualities in it. This one is good. It's fun. It's small, but it's fun. I'm going to share with you probably the most personal story I'll ever share on the video. And the reason I do this is because I've often said in writing that if you think back in your life, you'll probably find moments, times, snapshots, images that were very powerful, very moving, maybe sad, maybe joyous. But these images, these moments, I believe, can very often be crafted into full novels. They become, not stories about telling that event directly, but centering your novel, your fiction, around the elements of what made that image or that moment, your own life, that personal moment, real moment, very powerful. And I want to give you an example, a moment from my own life. To build up to this, let me tell you that recently I binge watched the 3 seasons of The Bear. Have you watched The Bear? It's pretty good. It's a little frenetic in the beginning, a lot of shouting, and there's language. They drop the F-bomb quite a bit, but lots going on. It gets very cloudy and clustered, but then it settles down. It's pretty good. I'm anxious to see the 4th season when it comes out. The reason I mentioned The Bear is because in there is a mother who's an alcoholic, and she's dysfunctional in many ways. She's played by Jamie Lee Curtis. She has a son, Cammy. Cammy is the central character in The Bear, but there are a lot of other wonderful performances and actors. Anyway, there is a moment in this series where the mother is cooking Thanksgiving dinner in the kitchen, and one moment she's gay and happy and laughing and hugging people, and the next moment she goes off the rails and she goes deep and dark inside of herself. She's drinking, she's smoking, and it ends up in a big blow up around the Thanksgiving table, and she drives her car into the house. My own mother was an alcoholic, serious alcoholic, and it's sad. I'll try to find a picture I can share with you in this video so you can see how beautiful she was. But inside she was sad and depressed, lonely in many ways. She could be in a crowded room and she was still lonely. My mother died of cirrhosis of the liver. Her liver literally gave out when she was 55 years old. Incredible and absurd. But watching that performance by Jamie Lee Curtis playing an alcoholic mother in The Bear brought back some real strong, deep feelings and emotions I had about my own mother. In particular, there's a scene later where they're opening up a brand new restaurant. The principal character and his friends are opening a restaurant, and they invite their family members to come to the first night that the restaurant's open. And the mother, the matriarch of this series, has been invited by her daughter. And she doesn't show, and her daughter's upset, and she wants her to be there. And at a certain point, the son-in-law, the daughter's husband, looks out the window and he sees the alcoholic mother standing out on the street, smoking like crazy. And she goes out, and the son-in-law says, come in, everybody's waiting to see you. And she goes, I just can't, I love them all, I love you, but I can't do that. I can't go in there and upset everybody, and I know I'll act ridiculous, and I can't come in. I love you. And she turns away, walks away. It's very sad. And she swears him not to say anything about the fact that she did come, but she couldn't come in. She couldn't bring herself to come in. And he goes back to the table, and his wife comes up, the daughter of Jamie Lee Curtis, and says, why are you crying? And her husband can't tell her. It's really sad. He feels the pain that the mother feels. When I got married many years ago, I sent an invitation to my mother to come to my wedding. You have to understand, I had made it clear to my mother many years before, just before and after I had children, that she was welcome to come anytime and live with me. But she couldn't drink. I'd had too much of that growing up. I didn't want to have it as an adult. So I laid down the law, and sadly, my mother was not able to comply with that request, so she never came to live with me. She was living in a small little trailer out in the middle of the desert in Henderson, Nevada, when a nurse extension agent came by and found her lying on a couch, and she'd been lying there for a couple of weeks. And the nurse, had my mother rushed to a hospital, and she didn't survive. Now, this was my mother. My mother, of course, drank away any money she received after she retired. And in that trailer one day, I heard the story from the nurse. She only had $2 left. And she had a couple dogs. She loved dogs. And she went to the store, and the store had a freezer that had broken down, and they were selling pies for $1 a piece. And she bought 2 pies and took them home and gave them to the dogs. That's how sad my mother's life was. Now, I'll go back. I invited her to come to my wedding. She didn't come. She didn't show. But after the wedding, I was sitting around with a group of family members who were opening wedding presents and laughing and everything. And I stopped and said, I'm kind of sad. I wish my mom had been here for this big day. And my father-in-law said, I saw a woman. And I got interested. He said, yeah, I was standing outside the church right before the service started, and a woman drove up in a taxi, got out of the back seat, and stood at the curb staring at the church. She was wearing a yellow dress. My mother loved yellow. He said, yeah, she was wearing a yellow dress, and I saw her kind of put her hand over her face for a moment, and then she took it away and looked up at the church, then got back in the taxi and left. I'm convinced that my mother came to my wedding, but was too embarrassed and too ashamed to come in. And then she died too soon for me to bring up the subject and ask her. That moment, that woman standing on the curb staring at the church, dressed up in a yellow dress, something on her head. My mother would never go to church without a little doily or something on her hair. That was her, and that she was there. But that image of her in my mind is strong enough to build an entire novel around. The novel wouldn't be the story I just told you, but the emotion that moment, that image elicits, the circumstances around which she ended up there, is so strong that I could write a story based on all of that. Maybe you need to look back and explore moments in your own life, times when, they were moving, and maybe, again, they were celebrations, and maybe they were sad moments in your life, or maybe in the lives of others that you know and care about. You may find some pretty good stuff there for writing your story, your novel. I think that's enough, don't you? Till next time, bye.